Welcome one and all. This video will be all about my impressions and the state of Elder Scrolls Online. Before going into this, I have a few things to state. Background music is all from the Oblivion soundtrack, so if you guys like the music, you should probably, first of all, have played Oblivion, because that game is awesome. And, you know, get the soundtrack, because it is pretty awesome. All of the background videos are from ZeniMax's own little cutscenes or gameplay that they have shown themselves, as I do not have any personal gameplay from my own personal experience to actually put forth. Also, it should be stated is that I have played 4 beta sessions thus far, so you can kind of trust my opinion on some of these matters. And also, the reason why this video is even being done is because the non-disclosure agreement has recently been lifted by ZeniMax, so I can now tell you guys what I think of the game thus far. So without further ado, let's start. Now this video will be categorized into 3 general topics. Times will be in the description of what I will be talking about. The first topic will be the PvE content, which is PvE is player versus environment or player versus enemy. I've seen it abbreviated both ways. I really don't care. It's the same thing. PvP, which is player versus player, which kind of a lot of people think is the most important thing of ESO. And that'll also be done after the PvE is done. And finally, just addressing the general business model of the Elder Scrolls Online, for those of you who haven't heard about it, and just my general thoughts on it thus far, because I know there's a little bit of controversy going on between some people. So, let's start with the PvE content. Okay, so when you look at the Elder Scrolls Online, you have to realize it is an MMO. But not only is it an MMO, it's also categorized as an MMORPG, thus meaning it does have some RPG elements put into it. Now, as referenced by some other MMOs, specifically WoW, in my opinion, has not that much good PvE content. It's kind of just farming. You really don't care too much about the quests, really. But in Elder Scrolls Online, that's really not the case. I know a lot of people have had some trouble getting immersed into the game, but honestly, I believe the Elder Scrolls Online, compared to the 3 other Elder Scrolls games I've played, Skyrim, Morrowind, and Oblivion, I found Elder Scrolls Online to be one of the easiest to really get immersed into. Now, I think the reason is because you have friends to play with, and even though you may not be huge into the RPG element of the Elder Scrolls Online, I know a lot of people are, though, it's kind of really easy. And the main reason is because first off, you're exploring locations you've always wanted to explore in an Elder Scrolls game. For instance, I've always wanted to explore the island of Stros Makai, which is the starting island of the Daggerfall Covenant. And when I was there with my friend Sean and Nathan, we explored the hell out of that island. That island is awesome. And we really got immersed into the environment. We even tried, you know, like RPing it, meaning role-playing it a little bit. And it was a lot of fun. It really was. The quests, granted, when you also have to look at this is also the starting island, so, you know, you expect there to not be too many in-depth quests, but in fact, there were kind of a few. That being the one, I forget what her name is, but the captain of the ship that you're trying to get aboard. Her quests were pretty immersive and pretty interesting. And then there were some other side quests that were kind of okay. But of course, there were some of the go here, kill an enemy, come back, oh, here's $1 billion gold for you to spend. Which, of course, I understand. Even Skyrim, Oblivion, and to a lesser extent, kind of Morrowind, had these sort of fetch quests, sort of. But in Elder Scrolls Online, it's understandable, however, that they are in the game. Because really, it's an MMO you're dealing with. Some people do not want to focus on the PvE content, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have good PvE content. Thus, I am okay with the idea of fetch quests in the Elder Scrolls Online. However, I do think, specifically in the starting areas of both the Daggerfall Covenant and the Aldmeri Dominion, that really, there were a little bit too many fetch quests. But the quests that were not fetch quests, which is what I'm trying to get to, were very, very well done, and I felt immersed in the characters. And it also really, really does help that the Elder Scrolls Online, in fact, has almost all of their NPCs completely voice acted, which is amazing for an MMO. Because really, I haven't heard of too many MMOs which their entirety of the entire game is I know that was a little bit repetitive, but most of the NPCs are voice acted, which really helps, again, get you really immersed in the PvE content, which really overall makes it a better experience for you. And again, relating back to quests that actually immerse you a lot, the best sources for this, meaning the best quests that you can relate to, are, for instance, in the Daggerfall Covenant, when you have to fight Falchu and his werewolf minions that have invaded the local town. I forget what the name is. I think it's Camlorn, if I'm correct. And you have to fight against his werewolves that are trying to, you know, invade the rest of the Daggerfall Covenant and stuff like that. Another is during the Aldmeri Dominion, where you're trying to help Queen Aerin fight off these assassins that want to stop her reign. These really get you immersed because you really get to learn just a lot about the characters that live in your alliance. And so you really get immersed, you understand these characters, and you realize that they're very complex. And even some characters, in fact, unlike some MMOs, where these sort of side quests, you know, these NPCs appear again and again and again. So you keep having, you know, these same relations with these characters, and you get to learn their backstory and how complex they are as a character, seeing that they support this cause, but they don't support this cause for this reason and this reason. So thus, it really helps, again, immerse you when these quests are much more elaborate. So thus, there should be less fetch quests and more of these intricate quests. But again, there seem to be more intricate quests, which is considerably better than what I had assumed that the Elder Scrolls Online would actually do. Now, let's go on the topic of the main story. Now, the main story, for those of you who don't know, you are a prisoner of Molag Bal when you start the game, and your soul has kind of been stolen by him. And also, while this is happening, Molag Bal is actually trying to invade Tamriel with his Dark Anchors, trying to suck Tamriel into his realm of Cold Harbor. Now, the main story does seem to have a lot going on for it. It seems pretty well written from what I've seen. You got Mana Marco thrown in there, who's the King of Worms, and you also have all these other little kind of stories that also go around it, with also tie up with the Fighters Guild, which I'll talk about in a minute. Now, this seems to be very well done, the main story overall, from what I've played. However, it does seem that it needs just a tad bit more direction of actually what you're trying to do in some parts. For instance, when you first find the Prophet, and you actually need to, he's trying to give you, like, a little bit of backstory on what's going on. He shows you, like, the, I don't want to say, kind of like the this isn't the right term, but holograms of, Mana Marco and what he did. So, right after that quest, he's just like, oh, kind of, you know, do whatever. There needs to be a little bit more directions in parts like that, where you're really not sure, you know, what's going on. So just a tad bit more direction there. Overall, though, the main story does seem pretty good. And also, I like how the Dark Anchors, you can have people go with you, and you can attack the Dark Anchors. So you have all these things tied in with the Dark Anchors that you can help try to rid Tamriel of Molag Bal's influence, and try to not get Nirn sucked up into Cold Harbor. So it really makes you feel sort of like you and your friends are trying to help the world, which really does help, like, the story overall. Now, let's talk about the Fighters Guild and just kind of dungeons in general. So, overall, the Fighters Guild quest, from what I've played, seems to be really good. However, the first quest for the Fighters Guild, where you actually have to go and help, I forget what the Red Guard's name is, but you have to go help a Red Guard. And the problem with this quest is that, mind you, we are playing an MMO, so I should be able to play with my friends, right? However, the first dungeon does not give you any prior knowledge that when you go in there, it's literally just you trying to help the Red Guard. So, I definitely think one of two things should happen in this regard to dungeons that act like this. The first thing is to either tell the player in advance, hey, this is a dungeon specifically made for single player, for just one person. Or they just open up all the dungeons overall. Now, what they could do in this is one of two things. Just have it be a completely public open dungeon, which really couldn't help that much. Or you could have anyone in a specific group actually enter that dungeon, thus making it a lot more fun overall. And back to the dungeons in general, there seems to be very, very, very few dungeons that are not related to quests that you can just go into and just loot. Now, there definitely needs to be some changes to that. There should be, you know, more caves, more mines, more dormer rooms that you can just go to that are just kind of like abandoned. Because, like, all of these dungeons in the game are all of the ones that are in the game actually are specifically quest related, which is definitely a problem because they shouldn't all be quest related. Some should just be there just for, you know, you looting. I mean, I know that there are definitely a few, but there needs to be a few more, specifically, for instance, on the starting islands, and just like the second area overall that you go to after you're done with your little island kind of spiel. Now, back to the topic of looting, I just wanted to bring up a comment that my friend Shimo made quite a while ago when he was talking about the Elder Scrolls Online, just when he was playing it for his first impressions. He said that this is one of the things he actually didn't really like that much about the game, and I pretty much agree with him. If someone went through this is verbatim from him, if someone went through the dungeon before you looted everything, tough shit, you have to wait for it all to respawn. Now, definitely, that is a problem that they need to address. I have no problem with waiting for it to respawn. The only problem is that the respawn times for NPCs specifically and like loot containers seem to be quite long, and that is quite a problem. Now, I do think, again, that there should be some waits for the respawn. However, it shouldn't be like more than, I'd say, like a minute long, which seems to be about how long it takes. So, thus, I do think they should change that, and it should be maybe 30 seconds, for instance. So that's what I think they need to change in regards to looting. But overall, aside from that, the looting mechanic is pretty well done. As long as you kind of hit an NPC, and that NPC will drop something, you'll get that loot, which seems to be pretty well done, and I like that. Now, for the final topic about PvE that I want to talk about is the class system. So overall, I love the class system. You have your Dragon Knight, which is kind of like your tank a little bit. You have your Sorcerer, which is obviously a mage. You have your Templar, which is kind of like a healer, but can also act as a tank somewhat. And you also have your Rogue, which is pretty self-explanatory. Now, overall, these class systems are great. They have their own unique class setups for them. However, I do think some of the abilities of certain classes should be available for all classes. For instance, you see, when you play the game a lot, you see a lot of sorcerers have all these conjurations. You know, they have their clan fears, their scamps, stuff like that they can just conjure up at any time and help them during battle. Now, although I do think the sorcerers should definitely have that in their class, I do think that should be not class specific, and that should be for every class. Now, maybe what they could do for this is have maybe the Mages Guild sell spell tomes that will actually give a player the ability to summon something, but make it, you know, quite a bit of money. So that way to not have, you know, everybody has like 1,000 OP conjurations rather. So thus, I do think it shouldn't be class specific. It should be for every class, like conjuration, specifically conjuration rather. But aside from that, all the other classes seem to be pretty well balanced. It does seem, from what I've played of the Rogue, it does seem the Rogue seems to be a little bit underpowered for PvE. However, PvP. I do think the Rogue should probably be buffed just a tad because of that, like, they just seem to have too little health and really can't do anything. So that's what I think they should change about the classes. But overall, the classes are very well done. So this is the part of the video where we start to talk about the PvP content. Now, I believe that this is generally one of the big selling points of the Elder Scrolls Online. For those of you who don't know, there are 3 factions: the Ebonheart Pact, the Aldmeri Dominion, and the Daggerfall Covenant, where they're all trying to fight over the province of Cyrodiil. And to do so, you can get your keeps, and eventually you can, once you get a certain amount of keeps, you'll be able to crown your emperor and take control of Tamriel, or Cyrodiil rather, and your people in your factions and that fight alongside the emperor and the emperor himself will get like buffs and stuff like that, which is actually a really cool mechanic. But overall, I love the PvP in Elder Scrolls Online. There, I said it. It's great. It's fantastic. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It's honestly one of the better PvP experiences I've ever had in an MMO. It was just, it was mind-boggling how much fun it is. You have just the assaulting keeps aspect of it is one of the best ideas I think I've ever heard. You have these factions, you're all trying to assault a keep. The keep's walls can come down. You got these battering rams, these catapults, these trebuchets, these basilias, or ballistas, I'm still not sure how to pronounce that, but to help assault the keep. The walls can come down, your soldiers can charge in. Eventually, you get to the main keep. You have to take control of flags to have control of the entire keep. It's just a great fun time, and it allows for a lot of coordinations, and it just helps a lot when you're just trying to, you know, have fun. You're trying to assault a keep, gain a lot. It's just a real ball of fun. It is just amazing. And one of the best things I think that the PvP aspect of the Elder Scrolls Online that has done perfectly is the fact that even though there are literally hundreds or even thousands of people on your screen, you will experience virtually no FPS loss, which is, wow, that is, I don't know how they managed to do it, but they did it, and they hit the nail on the head. They did it perfectly. And in fact, the only lag I ever experienced in the Elder Scrolls Online was when I was in the PvP areas. And this wasn't like actual, you know, computer lag, it was server lag, which is understandable. And of course, they've continued to upgrade their servers over and over, because as you should know, it is one big mega server. It's all one server for all PC and Mac users, all Xbox One users, and all PS4 users, which is actually a really interesting system that I really do enjoy, because you won't have to have people like in WoW, for instance. Oh, I'm on this server, well, it looks like I have to pay, I don't know how much it is for WoW. Let's just say it's $5. I don't know. Someone can comment on that and tell me how much it actually is. But to actually move that character to that server and then this server, it's just really fantastic how it's one big mega server. And in fact, even though again there was some lag in this battle caused by the server, it still wasn't that much, in my opinion, to really be noticed, which is fantastic. And I think they obviously hit the nail on the head there. And another thing that I really, really like about the PvP aspect of the Elder Scrolls Online is that Cyrodiil is not completely PvP content. You have a few NPCs and quests and stuff like that, and you know, your faction areas, and you got a few towns, stuff like that, which really adds for an interesting aspect to the game. You have certain quests that you can do, you know, just a lot of, not only is there PvP content in Cyrodiil, but there's also PvE content. So it's a blend for everybody. You can quest in a very hostile zone, you know. And in fact, speaking of hostile zones, I was in fact once, and this is probably my favorite Elder Scrolls Online moment, I just thought I should share this with you guys, is that I was like ambushed by 4 Ebonheart Pact members on the road while I was questing, which really added for like an interesting aspect. You know, I'm getting ambushed, this is really cool. And I managed to fend off all 4 of them, and that was just amazing. See, it adds for a lot of interesting aspects into the PvP content of the Elder Scrolls Online. And not only that, but you also have, you know, like the Elder Scrolls literally in Cyrodiil that give bonuses to your faction members and all these other interesting things that you can steal them from other factions, you know, take their Elder Scroll, bring it back to yours, get buffs for your guys. It's awesome. It is just amazing. Now, that's not to say that the PvP content of the Elder Scrolls Online is completely without its faults. There are definitely some, this one obviously being the server lag, but that can definitely be fixed very, very easily. Because of course they're continuing to upgrade it and upgrade their servers over and over and over again. So that will be fixed by the time the game is released. So that shouldn't even really be a main problem. The only 2 things that I have to say about the PvP content that I really kind of think there should be generally just some improvements on is that definitely the bow and arrow should definitely be improved. It seemed that when I used the bow and arrow in the PvP of the Elder Scrolls Online, it seemed very, very, very underpowered compared to when I was using it in the PvE area. So the bow and arrow should definitely have some more interesting aspects to it that will actually make it considerably more useful during the PvP area of the Elder Scrolls Online, and that's why I in fact resorted to using my 2-handed axe instead of my bow and arrow. And the other thing that I definitely think that they should improve upon in the Elder Scrolls Online PvP aspect is that when you deploy your siege equipment, it instantly appears, or virtually instantly, I should say, which is definitely something that they should change. I do think that there should be some time in between you actually setting up the siege equipment to it actually being deployed, because thus, if you had, like, let's just say 50 guys and all of them had access to, let's say, a trebuchet, they could have 50 of them up instantly and then just take down the wall. There should definitely be just some time in building the siege equipment. You know, it shouldn't be instant. It should be maybe 30 seconds. It would add interesting aspects to the keep battle, and it could improve upon it. It could just be longer and more attacks. It's just, overall, I think that would be the better decision if they decided to have a longer time when they actually decided to set up the trebuchets and other siege equipment. So thus, as a recap, I do think that the PvP aspect of the Elder Scrolls Online is fantastic. It adds for just a lot of great things that you can do, not only with your friends, but just in your faction in general. And you have all these other people you can meet and fight for the keeps of Cyrodiil. And of course, you know, as previously mentioned, there are definitely some things that they should change, but overall, the PvP aspect of the Elder Scrolls Online, bam, one of the best things they ever did. Now, at this point in the video, I will be addressing the Elder Scrolls Online business model. For those of you who do not know, the Elder Scrolls Online will be paying first of all, a monthly fee of $15 once you buy the game. The game on its own is $60. By the way, I'm using US currency. $80 for Digital Imperial Edition, and $100 for the Physical Imperial Edition. Now, let's first start with the monthly subscription of $15. I know a lot of people are very, very angry at this still after they announced this months ago, but you need to take this into account. First of all, the devs aren't going to be continually making money enough to support themselves for months in advance, so thus this $15 will help them continue to improve upon the product that they've made, the Elder Scrolls Online. So thus a monthly subscription is worthwhile. It's definitely, they will continue to improve the game with that money. You're not just giving them money for their profit. They will keep improving the game until virtually no one plays it ever. Thus meaning that the Elder Scrolls Online will continue for considerable amount of time even after its release. So thus, if a monthly subscription is completely logical to have in an MMO, or the MMO or the devs of the MMO will eventually die out and there'll be virtually no creativity and there'll be no new content for you. However, that being said, I do disagree with it being $15 a month. I know a lot of MMOs have actually done that, specifically WoW, of the $15 a month subscription. I do think because of the popularity of the Elder Scrolls Online, even in its current state, the subscription, there will be more than enough money at $15, so why not make your consumers even more happy by going it down to $10? Sure, you will lose profit. However, there will be more people over time saying, you know, this is less money than WoW overall, meaning World of Warcraft. So maybe I should put $10 down here instead of putting the $15 a month at WoW. In fact, it's $180 a year with the with the $15 a month subscription, which is a hefty price for some people. So if you dumbed it down to $10 a month, it'd be $120, which is, I know it's $40 different, but it can make a lot in some people, can change a lot for some people. So thus, I do think it should be put down, for instance, $10 a month or $7.50. It should not be $15 a month. Alright, so here's the main part, what has a lot of people's jimmies rustled. This is the Explorers Pack and the Digital Imperial Edition for the Elder Scrolls Online. For pre-ordering the Elder Scrolls Online, you get the Explorers Pack. You can play any race and any alliance, which, in fact, before this, you could only be one of the 3 races in the Aldmeri Dominion to be in the Aldmeri Dominion, for instance, but now you can be like a Dark Elf in the Aldmeri Dominion. And you can also have a Scuttler Vanny Pet and the bonus treasure maps. There's no problem with that. Basically, everybody's pretty much fine with that. But however, the Imperial Edition is what gets a lot of people's jimmies rustled. As you can see, the Imperial Edition has the ability to play as an Imperial in any alliance. Now, this is what gets a lot of people just extremely angry. And I think, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I think it's completely fine what they did in terms of the Digital Imperial Edition. I'll actually go through the rest of it in a moment. But the play as an Imperial got a lot of people angry. Now, the reason why it's okay for them to even put this into the digital, or both the physical and Digital Imperial Edition, is because before the Elder Scrolls Online was even out, they specifically said to us, we are not, it's just going to be the 3 alliances, you cannot play as the Imperials, and everyone was fine with that. However, once they brought this in, you people, specifically the community, began to get very angry that you weren't going to get something that you weren't promised. So there's no reason that you should be angry when specifically the devs said, we are not going to let you play as the Imperials. Thus, it is fine for them to put this into the Imperial Edition. And in fact, it's not like the Imperials are going to be overpowered compared to the rest of the races. All races have their own specific advantages and disadvantages. For instance, orcs are mainly only good at berserking, but not very good at magic. Thus, it's completely fine for them to have the Imperials in the Imperial Edition, because it will not in any way make you better than any of the other players. So, again, you people have no reason to argue. You do not have an argument. Now, let's move back down to the other things in the Imperial Edition. There's also the normal physical items, which we get in every physical edition, obviously. Statue of Molag Bal, map of Tamriel, and a collector's book guide thing. You also get a white Imperial horse. Now, literally, I am extremely surprised you guys were not more angry about this. The Imperial horse. Now, when you play the Elder Scrolls Online, the first horse that you can get is 17,000 gold. That is a lot of gold. At the rate I was earning gold, I was making about 1,000 gold a day. Which is, if you were going to put this into Skyrim terms, that's no money at all. But 1,000 gold a day is 17 days if you want to get the starter horse. Common horse, I think it's called in the game. And then it's 40,000 gold for the better horses. So why are you people not more angry at this than the Imperial race? You at least have something to be angry about when you refer to the horse. Also, you again get the mud crab vanity pet, which no one really cares about, whatever. And the Rings of Mara, which gives an experience bonus, which again, it shouldn't matter again, you people. The only reason you have something, the only argument you have to make when you refer to the Rings of Mara is when you're in the PvP area, when you gain experience there, because thus they're going to be level 50 when you're level 10, which that is a reasonable argument to have. I do definitely think that there should be some sort of a cap, depending on what the experience bonus is on the Rings of Mara. But again, just to reiterate, you people have no argument when it comes to the Imperial race. They never said that we were going to be able to play as the Imperials, and then you people begin to whine about something that you knew you were not going to have, but now if you put $20 down, you will actually get it, but you're whining at that. Thus, again, you have no argument. So that brings us to the end of our video. So overall, I'm just going to reiterate some of the things that I talked about. I do think that overall the Elder Scrolls Online, in its current state, is still a very, very good game, and in fact, it feels more, which is great. It feels more of an Elder Scrolls game more than an MMO, which is great because the more it feels like what it's supposed to be, the better the game is. So, thus, again, the Elder Scrolls Online is probably one of the better games, that MMOs in general, that I've ever played. And it is just a ball of fun. Definitely there are some problems, as previously mentioned, and they do need to change some of the things. But, of course, once they change it, it will become one of the greatest games ever. But it still is in its current state. Thus, at its current state, I recommend it to everyone. I think everybody, in their own sense, will enjoy this game, however you play. If you're a mage, if you're even if you're a single player, like, if you just want to play by yourself, it's still a great game because it's so easy to get immersed in. And I know I usually rate mods, for instance, in games on my channel, but because it's still in beta, I do not want to rate it. I think I will actually do I might do a full in-depth review of the game once it's released. That's on April 4th, 2014. But in fact, if you pre-order the game, I think you get it like 5 days earlier. So that will be fantastic. So, but again, overall, great game in its current state. I recommend you all sign up for beta, link in the description. And if any of you want to be part of my Elder Scrolls Online guild, check out the Team UDF community group. We are doing a discussion there as to which alliance we shall be aligned to for our guild. So far, I think the Almeri Dominion, Daggerfall Covenant is winning with a considerable margin. But if you want to change that and you still want to be in our guild, that's fantastic. So just hop on there, say you want to be part of the Ebonheart Pact for this reason or this reason. And anyway, I hope you all have had a wonderful, like, whatever it is, 30 minutes of watching this. And I hope you all have a great day, and talk to you all later. Peace!